Good evening all, and welcome. Just as a quick reminder, tonight is the last day that you can sign up on Patreon to receive the exclusive offer found on screen. Signing up at whatever tier really does help me out, and it means the world to me. So if you're considering it, thank you, and if not, that's fine too. But without further ado, it's time to get comfortable and let the darkness take control. I have been roofied 3 times, once in high school and twice when I was in college. I am no stranger to the effects of it, and it's a brutal experience as a whole. My worst was the 3rd time it happened, and hopefully the last. At the time, I was about 22 years old and finishing up college. I was using Tinder and had met a few folks. We chatted, had gone on some dates, but nothing very serious ever came of it. This one week, I had 2 dates planned. The first one on the Friday with an EMT for sushi and drinks, and the other one to the state fair on Sunday. Come Friday, I ironically had left a note for my roommate at the time with the EMT Tinder guy's name, his Facebook info and general info because of my hyper paranoia. Hooray, anxiety. He picked me up and we went to sushi. First and foremost, he had to be one of the rudest people I have ever encountered. I'm talking yelling at waitstaff, complaining about everything, and generally being a dickhole. I was completely over any interest in this guy almost immediately, but I didn't want to be rude and ruin the date. So I finished my beverage, excused myself to the bathroom, and mass texted some friends about meeting up downtown so they could come and save me from him. A pair of friends were already planning on going out, so agreed to meet me. In the meantime, this guy and I go to a local bar and grab a beer. I buy us 2 bottles, trying to be smart, having been roofied before, and don't let it leave my sight. We drink them, and he, of course, continues to be the king of douche. Eventually he asks if we want to go somewhere else, since it was encroaching the time my friend said they would be going downtown to meet me. I suggested the spot where the save was going to go down. We walk there, burning off the 2.5 rolls of sushi I ate, 1 margarita at dinner, and 1 beer from the last place. Now keep in mind that I am not a lightweight. I'm 5'8", 135 pounds, and I can handle my drink, especially when spread out over the course of about 3 or so hours. We arrive at the bar, grab another drink, and I order a vodka and soda, while he has a beer. We go and sit at the table, positioned so that I can see the front door, and sort of chat, as I'm really not trying to say anything rude to him for the way he treated the people at the restaurant and more. Finally, my friends walk in, and I jump up and call their names. Thank goodness they're here. They walk over, say hi, and I half introduce them to the Tinder turd and step away from the table to give them a hug and ask them to come with me to the bathroom. I turn back towards the table where the guy is sitting, also where I left my drink for about 2 minutes, and my friends and I head to the bathroom to plot the escape strategy. The plan was for me to go with them to the bar, get a drink, and we would get lost in the crowd. They'd get a beer, and we would head out. It worked just like that too. I finished my drink, walked out the bathroom with them to get to the bar, and they chugged a beer, and we went to walk out of the sight of this dude. At this point, it was like my world started spinning. I feel really loopy and know something isn't right, but I push myself to get out the bar thinking maybe it's just anxiety of me ditching this dude. As we walk out the bar, I start blacking out and vaguely remember my arms around my friends as we walk down the side street towards another bar. It seems that the guy saw us leaving and he comes running out after us. He proceeds to ask my friends if I'm okay and where I'm going. Can he come with? Are they sure that I'm okay and that maybe he should take me home? They tell him to get lost, and that we're going to see a friend of ours down the block, and he leaves. The next thing I remember is waking up the next day, vomit everywhere, no clothes and bruises all over my body, and a wicked headache. Apparently the rest of my night went like this. I kept telling my friends, "Guys, I think something was put in my drink," but they thought I was saying, "I think I'm drunk," and didn't know how much I drank before I'd met them. At one bar during the night with them, I collapsed in the middle of the dance floor and security had to carry me out. My friends opted not to call an ambulance and sat me at a table just outside the bar. They called the last person I messaged, which was the second Tinder date I was supposed to have later in the week. Side note, I hadn't met them yet, and said that I was really messed up and asked if he could come and get me to take me home. He did. Apparently, in the car home, I was quiet and just kept saying that I had been slipped something, and kept asking who he was. When we arrived at my house, I opened the door and began to projectile vomit all over the parking lot. Being that I could hardly stand, I was collapsing onto the pavement, slamming into cars. To the would-be Tinder date that just brought me home, picked me up and carried me into my house. He got me into my room and I crawled into the bathroom, making a lot more noise and more. My roommate came out of her room and was like, "Who the hell are you? What did you do to her?" And is ripping into this dude who genuinely did a really good thing by helping me when he didn't even know me. He explains to her what he knew, what I kept telling him, and that he was just helping me get home safe. At that point there was a loud thud in the bathroom. Apparently I had stripped down into my undies, thrown up all over, and attempted to throw up again, slipped on my bath mat and slammed my head onto the side porcelain bathtub, leading to a very bad concussion. My roommate is freaking out and tried to tie up my vomit-soaked hair while I'm trying to crawl out the bathroom and cry. The Tinder date who helped me leaves. I wake up in shock, covered in bruises and vomit with a massive concussion. What sucks the most is that after my friends convinced me to go to the ER to get myself looked at, the doctor gave me a massive lecture on mixing alcohol with illegal substances. There was a plethora of anti-anxiety medication and sedatives in my system with some alcohol, of which I had been prescribed some of the anxiety meds in the past, but knew better than to drink and take them because they can seriously mess you up, and I'd not taken them in about a month because I never got a new prescription. I tried to explain this to the doctor, but she rolled her eyes and alluded to the fact that I seemed like someone who enjoyed a good time and should try to be safer with my decisions next time. To top it all off, I had posted a Snapchat story of my friends with me in the hospital with a shout out to their support in being there for me for hours, and the creepy ass guy messaged me, "What are you doing in the hospital? Did something happen to you last night? I hope you didn't think I did anything to you." Okay, yeah buddy, that doesn't scream guilt at all. I had just gotten home from Iraq, and I was visiting family up in the country at my grandparents' house. On my way back to my mum's house after dinner, the check engine light flipped on, and I pulled over as soon as I could to check the fluids and such. Breaking down out here is bad, simply due to the narrow roads and the miles you have to go to get anywhere. My mother was supposed to be leaving not long after me, so I sent her a text because calling was futile and decided to look around a bit until she showed up. I had pulled over fairly close to this property alongside the river, but there was a crude wall in the front yard blocking the view from the road. It looked abandoned, so I let myself in. There was a lot of pot growing inside the house. Everything had been gutted, and it was just plants and those heating lamps. I noped out of there faster than I ever have in my life and waited for my mum to put oil in the car, and I was just about to be on my way when this rusty red pickup truck drives by. The driver slows and looks at us, then turns around quickly and pulls up behind us. He was an older guy, and he looked like he hadn't showered in days, wearing blue overalls and no shirt. He jumps out, ran to my mum's car and starts knocking on the window. I'm thinking that this is the end. We told him about the car and about me just getting home from deployment. He just stared at us for what felt like forever and told us that next time we break down, to do it somewhere else. He stood by his truck until we were out of sight. That was terrifying. I am a 27-year-old female. At the time this occurred, I was a senior in high school, angsty and steady into partying. For this story, I need to let you know about someone called Kay. Kay almost cost me my life, and I never want to see her again. She'd grown up privileged, given anything she ever wanted. Her parents adopted her 5 cousins, and this is when she started to rebel. Her parents, well off, started to pay less attention to her, so Kay had all the freedom in the world. At this time, this incident occurred. Kay was 18, and I had just turned 18. We were headed to a kickback at these guys' house, and it was nothing more than a little bit of the green stuff. Now, I've done my share in smoking it, popped a few pills here and there, and I had just casually tried ecstasy the summer prior. However, I was planning on staying sober. She picked me up, we stopped to buy cigs at a gas station, and bought a fountain drink, one with the straw and everything. This is crucial for the story later. We arrived at the apartment, and everyone is smoking, including Kay, but I declined. She would always say stuff about me, how she never wanted to be high alone, complaining about how I never got as high as her, so I obliged, and I cleared the bong. Off her hit, not even taking a full hit. She asked for a drink of my soda, so I handed it to her. We had it for a good minute. I had my head turned, talking to someone at the kickback, and when I looked back at Kay, she was messing with my straw. I didn't think much of it, as she handed it back to me. Within 30 or so minutes, I started to feel intensely high, to the point that I needed to escape from the group. I go out front to smoke a cigarette, only to find that I couldn't stand, so I laid on the front porch. Then all of these dark thoughts flashed through my mind. I felt so sick, like my stomach was being torn open. I couldn't stand. I had to crawl to the bushes to throw up. I thought to myself, all of this from clearing a bomb? So I laid back on the porch. The apartment was located on a busy street in the city. I also thought about running into traffic because I felt like I was dying. So I gave myself 2 options. I could run into traffic, have a car hit me, and end this horrible pain I was in. Or I could get some help, maybe flag someone down. My mind wasn't in the right state. I knew nobody at the kickback would take me seriously, and I knew something was horribly wrong. I thought about calling my mum. I must have dialed her number and hung up about 5 times. Finally, I called her and told her what happened. After that, I didn't know why I was so high. Nobody else was feeling the way I felt. What seemed like an eternity later, Kay came out looking for me. As I'm puking my guts into the bushes, she asks me if I want to get some food. I asked her if she was serious, as she laughed as I puked. What I didn't know is that my mother had called my older brother to collect me, since he lives close to where I was. He showed up with a machete, ran inside and threatened people. He didn't know who gave me what. It wasn't until I got home that my brother took one last look at my eyes and noticed how dilated my pupils were, so they rushed me to the ER. After more puking, my memory goes a bit fuzzy. I just remember asking my sister-in-law if I was going to die, and telling her that I was afraid. They ended up sedating me due to the fact that I was yelling and threatening the nurses, which is extremely out of character for me. They did a tox screen and found MDMA, along with a host of other things in my system. I'm assuming the other stuff were the ones used to make up the ecstasy. Now, this is all frightening and everything. However, what I found out a few days later shocked me to my core. Kay had been to a house party the next night. Somebody there had said she was passing out free E to 4 different people. Of those 4 people, 3 had grand mal seizures and had to be taken to the ER by ambulance. I'm assuming whatever she was giving out was a bad bunch. Remember when she asked me to have a drink of my soda? I'm assuming this is when she dropped the pill inside and it dissolved. She probably crushed it beforehand or something. I have no clue. But at this time in my life I hadn't done anything for quite a while, especially not that. Kay also went on to tell people that I was the one that slipped her the stuff, and she had to go to the hospital. She's a pathological liar and has to go to therapy for a long time for mental disorders. All of this happened because she wanted me to be high like her. I could have ended my own life because I wasn't in the right frame of mind, and this still affects me to this day. It sounds cliché, but I have a hard time trusting people. With this experience and among other things. I also don't like sharing drinks with friends. I get scared when I go out to a bar or club, fearing for the worst. I mean, if my own friend had done this to me, what's stopping a stranger? So I always guard my drink no matter what. And Kay, let's never meet again. I had just turned 21, and obviously wanted to celebrate by going to the most popular dance club in my town with a few girlfriends. I'd never had a fake ID or anything, so this was my first clubbing experience. We get inside and order drinks. I ordered a girly type bottled drink. We drank for a bit and then hit the dance floor. So I had been taught about safety while out at the club. I knew all the things to watch out for. A tip that a co-worker had once given to me was to put your thumb partially in the neck of your bottled drink if you're not going to be paying close attention to it, as it disables access for anyone who might want to put something in there. So that is exactly what I did the entire night. A few guys had asked us girls to dance and we obliged. Eventually the second guy I ended up dancing with gave me a weird vibe. He tried to buy me a drink, saying he would go to the bar and get it for me. I declined. He asked if he could hold my drink for me while we danced, seeing as how I had a wristlet in my other hand, and he just wanted to be helpful. I declined and he got pushy. I got the weird vibe after those couple of different passes, and when the songs changed I left him, saying I needed to find my friends. My friends and I hung out for a while, then went back out onto the dance floor. Lo and behold, who would slide up next to me? So here I am, a 21-year-old with no clubbing experience and no huge dating experience, feeling uncomfortable while this guy dances with me. I don't assert myself. I was intimidated and feeling a little rubbish. I let him dance near me, kind of vaguely dancing but avoided eye contact, keeping an eye on my friends, both of whom were dancing nearby. And that's when he got all touchy-feely. He put one of his hands on my waist, not aggressively, but it made me even more uncomfortable. Took my free hand as the wristlet was hanging on my wrist, and made a few "woohoo, look at us, we're dancing" kind of motions. Then he switched his hand, ran down my other arm, lightly grasped my hand, the one where I was holding my drink, and I feel his finger slide until he's touching my bottle. My stomach turned over, but I kept dancing, not really knowing what to do. And that's how it went. Every so often, he would feel around my hand and bottle, my thumb firmly lodged in there, and then let go. After about a minute of this, I felt his forefinger and thumb grasp my bottle thumb as if to confirm, to test, to see if it was indeed in there. At that moment, the song changed, and I saw my friend in my peripheral vision. I made direct eye contact with him, and we shared a moment that really made me feel like he was thinking, I know you just got what I was trying to do. And I fled in the direction of my friend, and we found my other friend and went to another club. I can't think of another reason why he would want to have his hand near my own hands or my drink. I know what he wanted to do, and so do you. I wonder how many other girls he had tried that with that night. I certainly hope he never succeeded. What a creep. This happened last year, while I was living with my boyfriend at the time, in an old 2-story house. The front door was downstairs and could be opened with a strong force even when locked. We then had initial stairs that led to basically another front door that locked a lot better. Still the most unsafe I felt in a house, even after I left this guy, Nigel, and moved into my own place in a shifty area of town. I couldn't break into that unit, but I certainly broke into the 2-story house a few times. I know, I should have just remembered my keys. So, it's a Sunday night. Nigel and I are watching TV in the lounge room, and there's a knock at the front door. I'm not really an unannounced visitor kind of gal, but Nigel had a few friends that would surprise visit after a binge. I looked at Nigel, and he shrugged, then sent me down to check it out in case it was one of those friends, so I could say he was asleep and send them on their way. I open the door, and there's no one. I call out a few times and don't get an answer, so I shut the door. I hear someone muttering and another knock, and something along the lines of, "I'm not gonna bite." This comment really annoyed me because it's night, and this is my damn place, and I don't like to be viewed as fearful. I open the door for round 2 and see a guy much taller than me, as I'm only 160 centimeters, so it's not that hard. A little wiry, but not too thin, and fairly decently dressed. He looked kind of perturbed that I had opened the door and proceeded to ask for the owner by name. I let him know, "Sorry mate, they're not here. We're renting off them," assuming that that would be the end of that, and glancing ever so slightly at the stairs, waiting for Nigel to come down and help me. This guy won't stop shifting from foot to foot, can't help but ensure he's moving at all times, and proceeds to argue a bit with me to produce Harry and Linda, the couple that owned the house I was renting. At this point I started getting the impression he's not sober. I start to conclude the conversation and send old mate on his way, when he asks me if my partner's there. This instantly put my guard up. I replied with a positive, and he asked me to get him, let me know he's already met him, and that he needs to talk to him. I cocked an eyebrow and asked him how he knew my partner, especially considering he hadn't called him Nigel at all, but just referred to him as my partner. But I'm kind of glad I did, because he mentioned my housewarming. Nigel had told me that the night of our housewarming, after I had passed our upstairs, he was cleaning and some strange guy had let himself in and sat down at our back table without a word. Nigel asked who he was, and this guy decided to aggressively ask right back, stating he was a friend of Harry's. Nigel was pretty charming when he needed to be, and got him out without too much of a hassle, and relayed the story to me as more of a joke, so I never worried about it too much. But now, I was worried. This is when the tirade about Nigel's car started. He kept repeating, "I need to talk to your partner. I've seen him driving around town with my ex-missus and my kids." He even pointed to my boyfriend's car in the driveway. This rattled me for half a second, because Nigel's car was only one of the 3 of its model in our town. But the general demeanor of this guy, I had basically concluded he was high, and set me back on track. I told him it was time to leave, or I would call the police, and shut the door on his face. I raced upstairs with my phone out, dialed the number, and watched through the window to make sure he left. Nigel half-heartedly asked what was happening, claiming he couldn't hear anything. We could hear the neighbours half the time from our lounge room though, so this little sod didn't actually give two craps about my safety versus his laziness. I explained and then called our landlord. She knew exactly who he was and explained that he had been swallowed up by the wonderful world of meth and reportedly has been knocking on doors of the whole suburb asking if people knew where his ex and child were. Thankfully, I never saw him again, and I really hope he got some help. And to the people in the house now, I hope you don't have to meet him. So to put this into context, I had just finished my competitive exams to enter an engineering school, meaning that I just came out of high school preparatory classes, aka 2 years of hell in the French system. I needed to get out before getting my final results, so as the naive, gullible, and honestly sort of dumb 18-year-old I was, I decided I wanted to go to Berlin and stay in a hostel for a week by myself. My parents allowed me to go, although I can be dumb, I'm trustworthy, and usually well aware of risks. So I went. When I got there, I sat outside next to my hostel, because the room wouldn't be available for 3 more hours. A 30-something-year-old dude came up and sat next to me. I asked for a cigarette, and that started a conversation. How great. He seemed pretty nice, liked filmmaking, and we shared the same political views, and the discussion is lively and entertaining. That's a nice dude right there. Plus, he offered to get us a beer at the nearest supermarket, so I'm pretty cool with the first person I met. Sure, right. He suggests we go out and get a drink later with the Airbnb guest he has over, but first to go to his place for a bit. This is where I get really stupid. I was a little iffy, but he seemed nice enough, and for some reason I didn't even give it a second thought. He could be lying about the other person being there, so I agreed, and he came to my hostel to pick me up. He literally lived 100 meters away. How convenient. When I met him, although he spoke perfect English earlier, he was now not really making any sense, probably mixing German and English. He had no real point in his sentences, and he took forever to reply to whatever I was saying. First red flag, you say? But I tried reassuring myself, thinking that perhaps he just had a bit too much to drink. When we get up to his apartment, I find an Airbnb guest, a 40-something-year-old American who kind of looked petrified. I immediately understood why, considering the apartment was an absolute dump. We went to sit in the kitchen, but I refused to drink anything, finally gaining some common sense, and asked the guy several times why he was being so weird, and he told me that he had taken some coke. Now I go into full-blown panic mode. I had never taken anything besides the occasional joint, so to me, that was 8 out of 10 on the messed up scale. I realized he had me trapped against the wall and was blocking the only exit. At this point, I'm already envisioning many ways to leave this place if things get messy. And at some point the guy got up to do whatever, and the Airbnb guy told me the rooms look nothing like they did on the website, and he hadn't signed up for this. We were whispering to each other that we needed to get the hell out of there, and that he needed to find a hotel to stay in, like we were in a movie or something. When the guy came back, I told him I was pretty uncomfortable staying there, and for approximately 10 minutes he refused we leave, telling me that I could not, until I just got up, went to the front door, and he held me back for another 5 minutes, because I was nice and didn't want to storm off and trigger anything. The dude finally let me go, and I ran for it. I didn't go out for 2 days, not even to get anything to eat. I just watched TV shows and stayed in bed. So, creepy Berlin guy, you definitely killed the naive part of me, so thank you for that. But, please, let's never meet again. Just a bit of background before I try and tell this story. I live in one of the bad parts of a city in Ontario, Canada, with my parents. I woke up at 10 a.m. I had a busy night of cleaning, and I did the usual routine of turning on my laptop, checking my emails and Facebook, when I got a knock on the door. Now we are looking for a new house because our landlord wanted us immediately out, and she is one of those unprofessional ones. When I looked out the window, there was this woman who looks like she could be related to the landlord. I woke up my dad, Bob, and he answered the door. This woman was actually a homeless person, but something about her seemed a bit off. She had her pants down, and she was wearing leotards, and she smelled awful, like a dead animal was left in a garbage full of expired food for a month. She had teardrop tattoos below her eyes, and now for those of you who don't know, that means that she has committed an unspeakable act against another person, effectively ending that person. She pulled her pants up and started rambling about some mumbo-jumbo, including that meth is medicine. One of the mumbo-jumbos stuck to me. She said that she was a guardian angel, and she kept going on about how she's just a spirit trapped in a body. She also said that she was dead thrice. She asked for a place to stay, but we said no. Good choice of words in my opinion, because she was giving me major red flags. Like she was giving me that vibe that she was unpredictable. We gave her a coffee and cigarettes and warmth, but she still gave me red flags. We finally asked her to nicely leave, and she took 45 minutes getting ready. She kept asking for a ride or money for a taxi, but we couldn't do that. I know that seems insensitive, but we gotta do what we gotta do. She finally left, but she did not wear her boots. She left them on our neighbor's lawn, leaving us to enjoy the rest of our day. I live in Germany, in a pretty small village. I think there are about 2,500 people living here. The next bigger cities are both 15 kilometers away, although they can be reached by bus fairly easily. Me and my friend Andrew were usually hanging around in the village until morning dawn on weekends. We'd grab our guitars and sit on the parking lot of the small grocery store or on the schoolyard of the middle school. Both are a few dozen meters away from the next building, so we're able to jam without annoying anybody. One night we sat there, cracked some beers, and were in a pretty good mood, writing our songs and singing some covers. You know how it is, teenagers right before their 20s. It was around 2 or 3 in the middle of the night, when we noticed a silhouette walking towards us from the main street. Our eyes have adapted to the dark, and we were seeing a young man, not saying anything to us, but instead moving pretty fast. He was wearing all dark clothes, a dark hoodie, and a dark backpack. I think he didn't see us, since the main street has bright street lights and we were sitting in the dark, but he sure as hell did hear us. Me and Andrew looked at each other, a bit confused, as he seemed altered. The guy stopped about 2 meters before reaching us and said, "Hey guys, mind if I sit with you for a while?" He seemed shady. My body told me not to trust this guy. It honestly told me to book it, but I didn't. Instead, he was engaging in our conversation, talking about music for a few minutes. He then said something strange. "Man, it feels good to talk to actual people again. Are you guys German?" I told him I was half Russian. Andrew is German. He told us he was from Arabia. He moved to Germany with his parents. He proceeds to tell us all about him. You know, the police is after me, they want to put me in jail. I looked at Andrew and he looked at me. I wasn't sure if this guy was lying about it, but he had proof. Damn, he had some good proof for that. "Look," he said, and opened his bag, pulling a transparent bag out of it. It had enough green for a college party of 50 people, maybe more. We thought he would start to offer it. Instead, he pulled out another bag with some white/yellowish stuff in it. Not too much. "This one was full once," he said. "I was supposed to sell it. Instead, I started taking it myself. And now, people had found out. The police, the guys I owe money to. I haven't talked to people for days, and I'm thirsty and high all the time. Look, guys." He pulled out a handgun. "Maybe I should end it right here. I've nowhere to go." I was shaking on the inside, but I was afraid to show fear. I did not know what this guy was up to. Was he seriously that high? He looked at us, laughed, well, more like exhaled through his nose, and packed his things away. "This would be wrong," he said. I can't really remember much from that point. I remember him walking away after, and wanting to shake hands with us. He thanked us for talking to him, and strolled away into the woods. My assumption, to the next village about 3 kilometers away. We waited for him to walk a good distance, and decided to get home as quickly as we could without drawing any attention. He said something like, "You wouldn't rat me out, right?" So we tried to make it look like we stayed there. We were afraid he would follow us otherwise. All the way home, we checked behind us to see whether he were following or not. He wasn't. We made it out of this, and I did not report him to the police, and my friend did neither. We were just too scared. We told him our names out of fear, which was a stupid thing to do, and we were afraid he could trace us back. We do hope, however, to never meet him again. This story was about my first time having mushrooms. I was sitting in a camp chair around a campfire with some other friends. We see this guy maybe 20 yards or so away, bent over looking closely at things and bumping around the tents. He had several flashing/glowing necklaces and braces, and was definitely looking the part of having ingested something dubious, but was maybe in his late 40s or early 50s. He makes his way over to our circle when we ask what he's doing poking around the tents. Maybe he's lost. Certainly wasn't right-minded at the time. He sits on the ground right next to me in my chair and starts going on about how messed up he is, and we just don't understand. Everyone is silently watching and listening to him ramble on. When he turns and looks directly at me, maintains eye contact when he says, "We don't understand," and he removes his eye. His eyeball. He takes that out. That was it for me. I got up and sped-walked back to my tent, zipped it out and noped right out of there, wondering just how that happened, and was sure it would give me nightmare for weeks to come. A few minutes later, one of my friends opens the tent and comes in, and tells me that after everyone about crapped themselves, they found out he had an artificial eye. I'm assuming after someone probably tried to help after what they thought was an emergency of a guy tearing his own eye. Anyway, not a big thing. But to witness something like that after being on hallucinogenics for the first time was incredibly intense. I used to work in a trailer park for my parents. Quite often, people would start using methamphetamine, begin to fall behind on rent, and get evicted. Whenever we evicted someone, their trailer was usually too torn to do anything useful with it. Essentially, to prevent having just a trailer in the middle of the park that we couldn't use, we'd buy it from them and just tear it down. Anyway, the scary and creepy part is here. Many of these occupants had children. More than half of all these children's rooms I found had locks on the doors from the outside. Inside the children's room, it was quite evident that the kids would sometimes be locked inside for days at a time, due to the bathroom corners that would sometimes appear. The doors on the insides of the rooms typically had scratch marks along the edges of the door and the frame. Getting rid of all the stuff inside before beginning demolition always frightened me. I was always afraid that I'd end up finding some child in a terrible condition amongst the filth. It never happened, but the odds of it potentially happening were, in my opinion, quite high. Hey guys, it's Mort here and thank you so much for listening. Gentle reminder for any of those of you interested in the Patreon, you can find the link in the description. And if you do want to join, please hurry because the promotion's going to end soon. And I probably won't launch another one for a while, so make the most of it if you want. I can't believe one of those stories where her friends knew that there was something wrong with her and just kept carrying her to the next place. I mean, why not just have someone take her home if you're her friends instead of call someone in her phone and be like, yeah, you'll do, take her home. That really got to me. I don't understand how you can call people like that friends. They obviously have their interests over yours. It's just wrong. I would never do that. If someone did that to me, I wouldn't speak to them ever again if I were in that situation, because I think it's wrong to, if someone's in need, if you know someone's not right, help them, sort them out. Don't just be like, oh, call someone in their phone book and have them take them away. That's just wrong. Yeah, no. Bad friends. Sorry, to the person who went through that. I'm really sorry. But those people aren't your friends, or at least not good friends. So yeah, that ticked me off a little bit. But anyway, if you like the video, don't forget to like, drop a comment with your thoughts. That always really does help me out. And subscribe if you're new here, because it does make a difference. And press the bell icon to be notified every time I post. So yeah, I hope you liked tonight's video. Definitely some strong messages in the stories. Look after your drinks. Don't always trust your friends, I suppose. Have better friends. Maybe that's a better message. Sorry, that story really annoyed me. Like, seriously got on my nerves. But yeah, if there's a story that you would like to share, feel free to send it to my email or post it to my Reddit page. Either can be found in the description of this video. Just remember, I'm doing obscure topics this month, pretty much. I'm going to throw in a few popular ones here and there, but I'm going to try and get a whole bunch of obscure stuff out the way. Because let's face it, it's September, loads of people are going to school or college again or university. Let's spice things up, let's make things a little different and do things that we really haven't heard all that often. So I hope you do enjoy it, I hope you stick around for it. Try out the other stories that are going to be launching every day. They really are quite good. Especially tomorrow's topic. Patreon recommended, actually. Power token, Patreon. So yeah, I'll see you all in the next one.